Good morning. Today we're going to talk about creating asymmetrical balance and how to make a successful composition that uses both positive and negative spaces. Here we have our friendly octopus. So it's a pretty cool design. It's got some details, it's got some areas that are open, it's got nice negative spaces between all the tentacles. He's a cool looking octopus. It's a good illustration. But if the black space is our scratch board, this is a bad composition. It doesn't matter how good the octopus is, the art will not be successful because the composition is boring. You never want to put an object right in the middle of your paper. It creates a dead composition. It's not very useful. Instead, a better approach is to create asymmetrical balance. So it seems a little lopsided, but that's kind of the point. The breathing space on the right and the bottom helps balance out all the detail of the octopus. I also moved the octopus to the side. I tilted it a little bit, so it looks like he's dropping in from the top. Rather than just floating in the middle with a bunch of dead space around, this octopus has a direction. This octopus is moving in, and this asymmetrically balanced empty space, this negative space over here, is actually active because we get the sense that the octopus is coming towards it. So there's space for him to go to. So you can balance out that heavy detail of the octopus with some calm and empty space. You can also balance something out by adding some other areas of detail that are maybe smaller. So I've flown in some little coral here. We've got a grouping of it. You can have some other objects balance out the one big object with a couple smaller objects. That also creates asymmetrical balance. Remember that negative spaces create interest. So those little spaces within your main area of focus within the octopus, these little triangles and swirls and other shapes within the tentacle space, those really create a strong design. And when you fill your space so that those negative spaces are bigger, they actually become more interesting for us to look at. Now, you need to have a focal point. The focal point is the main event. It's where you want the viewer to look first. In our design, it's our octopus. So our octopus is the biggest. It also has the most contrast. The white head kind of contrasts against the detail in the tentacles and definitely has high contrast against the black background. It's the biggest, it's the boldest, it has the most movement and the most interesting negative spaces around it. So that's our focal point. We also have some supporting characters in the coral. They're interesting. They're also grouped and they're overlapping. So the grouping of them where they're touching each other and the overlapping of the elements really creates a more interesting design. You want to always think about spacing. So the tentacles of the octopus, now that he's really big, are very close to this little baby coral here. That makes it more interesting to look at. Your goal is to come up with your own idea now. You're going to create at least 3 small sketches. In those sketches, you want a design that makes asymmetrical balance, one larger thing, one more detailed thing balanced out by some smaller objects or by some breathing room, nothing right in the middle. You want a clear focal point, something that we look at first. What's the main star of your show? And then also, you just need the basic structure for your design. You don't need to worry about details yet because it's just a roadmap. These will be created in your sketchbook. And it might look something like this. So again, I have 3 different ideas and they're just the bones. I haven't done any shading or haven't even really figured out what will be black and white yet by shading it in, but it is in my brain. I know what it will look like. So this is where we're going to start. So 3 design ideas, and think in terms of black and white. Think in terms of negative and positive shapes, because when we make one of these a little bit bigger and more developed, we're going to need that roadmap with our scratch art. So you might be thinking you need some inspiration first. So let's just look at some images that demonstrate those possibilities. All of these utilize just black or white. They're asymmetrically balanced. They fill the space, and they have a focal point. And all of these images are available for you to look at again in your Schoology.